The bear roared, swiped. The knight rolled under, slashed at its leg. Again. Stan watched, breathless. It was like watching a storm be outmaneuvered by a single bird. The room was too quiet. Not even the ticking of a clock or the rustle of parchment disturbed the silence. Stan stood still, eyes cast down at the edge of the principal's desk. In his trembling hand, he held the letter, folded neatly, sealed with the wax crest of House Halden. The principal, Lord Dareth, didn't look surprised. His lined face remained still, unreadable. He reached out with a gloved hand, took the letter from Stan and set it on the desk as if it were an overdue report. "So," he said quietly, "you've made your decision." Stan nodded. He was only 14, but he felt decades older. His throat was tight, and every breath seemed too loud in the silence. Shame coiled in his chest, hot and choking. "I'll process the withdrawal papers," Lord Dareth said. "You're dismissed, Stan." Stan gave a small bow, more reflex than respect, and turned without a word. His boots made soft thuds on the stone floor as he left the office, the heavy oak door clicking shut behind him. The kingdom of Athelion had always been a land that prized strength. Forged in centuries of war and civil bloodshed, Athelion emerged under one banner only after the Great Unification 3 generations ago. Its nobles trained their sons not in art or scripture, but in warfare. Every family sought honor through the blade, and so the Academy, Athelion's finest martial institution, accepted only the best. Sons of noble houses sent at age 10, trained until manhood. Stan Halden had entered like the rest, but unlike the rest, he hadn't grown stronger. In the solitude of his dormitory, he packed slowly. The plain wool uniform, the books he never truly needed, the quill and ink he barely used. He didn't own much. Everything he came with was still almost untouched. His fingers hesitated as he folded his sash. Once he'd worn it proudly. Now it felt like a costume, something borrowed. The halls were half empty as he walked toward the gates of the Academy. Grey skies matched his mood. He kept his eyes forward until he heard the sneering voices behind him. "There goes the noble ghost. Quits without a fight. He can't even lift a practice sword. What did he expect?" The laughter stung more than it should have. Stan's steps slowed. He turned slightly, his eyes drifting over the group. They were boys his age, full of cruel confidence. But one stood apart. Lee. Lee didn't laugh. He leaned against a pillar, arms folded, his gaze distant. Not smug, not mocking. Just uninterested. Stan held his gaze for a second too long. Lee didn't look back. Something in Stan flickered. Admiration? Envy? It was hard to tell. The carriage rocked and rattled along the forest road. The driver, a man named Wicks, smelled faintly of cider and had a habit of humming tunelessly. Stan didn't mind the silence. He sat back, cloak drawn tight around his thin frame, eyes watching the blurred green of trees pass by. He was tired in a way he couldn't name. Not just his body, his thoughts felt heavy, like they moved through mud. They were 2 days out when it happened. The horse screamed first, a sound that split the calm like a blade. The carriage lurched as Wicks pulled hard on the reins, shouting something Stan couldn't make out. A shadow burst from the trees. The bear was massive. Its fur was dark and matted. Its eyes gleamed with a hungry madness. Wicks jumped down, waving a stick, yelling, but it was useless. Stan scrambled out, slipping in the mud. He stood frozen. The bear towered over them. Its breath came in clouds of steam, then a blur of steel. From the trees, a lone knight charged, no banner, no armor of glory, just leather and chain, a blade nearly too long for his build. He was small, shorter than most men even, but fast. The bear roared, swiped. The knight rolled under, slashed at its leg. Again. Stan watched, breathless. It was like watching a storm be outmaneuvered by a single bird. The knight struck with precision, each movement purposeful, fearless. He was nothing compared to the size of the beast, and yet, in a final cry and thrust, he brought it down. The bear collapsed in a heavy thud that shook the ground. The knight stood still, panting. He wiped the blood from his blade and turned to Stan. "You all right?" Stan nodded slowly. He couldn't stop staring. The knight gave a short nod, then turned to check the horse. Wicks had fallen in the mud, unharmed but shaken. Stan swallowed, then asked, "What's your name, sir?" The knight glanced back. His voice was even, almost disinterested. Caldus Thorn. And then he was gone, back into the trees, like he'd only stopped to swat away a fly. The towers of Halden Manor rose above the fields like grey spears piercing the sky. The guards at the gate said nothing. A stable boy ran to fetch Lord Halden. Stan's father appeared in the main hall, dressed in hunting leathers, arms behind his back, expression unreadable. "You're early," his father said, though not unexpectedly. Stan hesitated, then handed him the sealed letter. Lord Halden didn't even look at it. He turned and walked toward the hearth, staring into the fire. "I never expected you to finish the program," he said, calm as stone. "Not with the way your body is." He glanced over his shoulder, voice level. "Not with that sickness in your blood." Stan looked at the floor. "I tried," he murmured. "I'm sure you did," his father said. But the words didn't comfort. They felt more like dismissal than sympathy. "You may go to your room." The old room hadn't changed. Same small bed, same stone walls, same view of the garden below. Stan sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at his hands, thin, pale, useless. Even now, his arms trembled from the weight of carrying his pack. The physicians had a name for it. Something foreign. A defect of the blood, they said. No matter how hard he trained, his muscles never grew. His bones stayed light. His strength never came. No power, no promise. He had tried, gods knew he had tried, but his body betrayed him every time. His thoughts drifted, not to the academy, not to the jeers, but to the road, to the bear. It had been a monster, a living mountain of fur and rage, and the night, small, unassuming, had brought it down. Not with brute force, with speed, precision, will, and something shifted in Stan's mind. What if the bear wasn't the monster? What if it was just another opponent? He thought of the boys at the academy, the ones who shoved him, beat him in every match. They were strong, bigger, like bears to him. But if that knight could take down a beast of that size, then maybe the gap between himself and the others wasn't unbridgeable. Maybe he'd just been fighting wrong. Maybe he didn't need to match them in muscle, but in method. Maybe there was still a way. He let out a quiet breath. A strange feeling flickered inside him. Not pride, not anger. Something quieter, sharper, curiosity. In that moment, he didn't imagine defeating the other boys. He imagined learning how.